one that I did was like
What? Okay.
maybe something like that.
Okay. So, you've described it. Both you and Tate have described it as like more aggressive. The second one being more aggressive.
That was the intent, yeah.
And my hypothesis is maybe this thing like wasn't totally sure that you guys had seen it, and then when you like, so Tate does his whoop, and in his two different directions, and then this thing responds. You guys come around the corner, and when you do the whoop, maybe that was
no response.
Seemed unsure, and it's looking at you, and it doesn't blink because it's like, do they see me? Do they know I'm here?
That doesn't make sense.
And then the
because
more
if we had,
aggressive whoop was like, oh yeah, they know I'm here, and so then it decides to walk away.
Did they see me?
Yeah.
but how would that make sense?
Because all it saw was a couple lights,
Right.
more or less.
Yeah, I mean, it's like, have you ever seen like flashlights, like if you like a couple 100 yards off, like if you're on the other end of the camp and you're wondering if somebody's like shining it at you, into your camp.
Could be me, could be anything.
Or are they just are they looking 10 feet in front of themselves at a log that they're getting ready to
maybe
throw
that's
on the
why.
fire,
Maybe that's why it stood there to figure out what's going on.
Yeah, but then after like it's like you changed your initial whoop to a more reactionary, for a more reaction warranting vocalization, and it's like, oh, it's like they're calling me out. Like, they know I'm here.
It's legit.
Maybe.
He's whooping me.
Yeah.
I didn't think about it that way, but that's a good take on it.
Yeah, that is a good take. But no, it definitely seemed like behavior. It didn't seem like natural instinct, like a deer that runs away or anything like that. I try to take pictures of animals all the time.
Well, deer will keep staring at you too until you rush it. They're more like, you can make a bunch of noise at them and they'll just stare at you. And I take night hikes through like the Wisconsin woods, and I'm always seeing these deer stare at me.
Another case in point was that deer beans camp in California. Just came right in their camp.
Yeah.
But like again, like you and I talked about earlier today, even if they're a bear or deer, they don't whoop back.
They don't whoop. I would say, like, you talked about the turning.
Yeah.
And I've had something like that happen in Appalachia, and it came down to, did I have a Bigfoot look at me and then turn away or was it a bear? And bears are pretty intelligent, so a bear might know to just turn their head and
Sure.
but I don't know. I'm not sure. It could be. It's not that they think that they become invisible once their eye shine's no longer visible. But it's one of those things that's, oh, you're shining a bright light at me, and I'm going to not stare directly into it, But yeah, there's definitely some different eye shines as I was night hiking along the Appalachian Trail all those years ago. Yeah. There were the deer that always stared at you and didn't break the line of sight. And you'd see little frog eyes and spider eyes glinting in the trees too. And like I've seen like little mice bounding through the forest and stuff. But then there were a couple of unknowns that behaved differently than the deer. It seemed like they were bigger, they were wider apart, and then when you shined your light on them for more than a couple of seconds, they just turned their head and went invisible. And I determined it's either a bear or a Bigfoot up there,
Whoa.
And I know a lot of people make the distinction between the color of the shine itself. I thought it was interesting that you guys said a yellowish, orangish color.
Yeah. Yellowy, orangey.
But I couldn't really recall like what those particular eyes all those years ago were. But I just remember the behavior was different than the deer that literally get the headlights look and just keep staring into the light.
Really distinct. Not so pattern oriented.
Yeah, I mean, because I would be walking like for like 8-9 miles in the dark. That would be half my hike of the day. And there would be times where you literally would see like 15 deer, in the right spots, and you would just they'd all.
You could tell that they're deer.
They'd all do the same thing.
Is their behavior.
And sometimes they'll stare at you, and if they're distressed, they'll let out like the little air noise that they make, the real high pitched like shriek sound that they do. But they'll still stare at you, Or they'll bed down and they're not concerned, and they'll just stare into the light until you pass on. But then there were a few things like the head turners, and never really knew exactly what those were. Could only guess that it was something other than a deer,
What in the world was that?
But
yeah. And that's kind of what we're left with. You know, I have no better explanation.
I'm pretty convinced.
Tate has already made his feelings pretty clear.
Yeah, I mean, the fact it'd be one thing if you didn't hear anything that night, but the fact that you heard whoops as a response to your behavior. And
I wish I would have heard them. You know, if I didn't have my head so bundled up, I might have heard something.
Well, like even regardless of the fact that Austin didn't hear the whoop, I did. That's the reason we went back.
Yeah.
If it wasn't for the whoop, we wouldn't have went back.
We wouldn't have gone back there.
We wouldn't have seen anything. We wouldn't have filmed anything. The fact that I heard the whoop, we went back. I got something on video. Austin couldn't.
It's proof that you really did hear something.
Austin couldn't explain it. Yeah, it is proof that I really did hear something. You know.
Yeah, it's pretty easy to rule out that a person was up there when there were no cars in this area.
100%.
You know, and nobody would be out there without a shirt on, so that the thermal would show the whole body. You know.
100%.
So
have glowing, nocturnal reflective
we
eyes.
discussed this in the interview we did on the camera earlier, but for me, it's like based off of just looking at the video. You know, it's either the way it stands up like that and it grows from behind the tree.
Yeah.
It's either a bear or a Bigfoot. And so we're left with the option that you didn't hear a whoop and that there was a bear and that like it wasn't like there's not a lot of sign of it anywhere, you know, like and that it wasn't scared like most bears are when people are making loud like ape noises and around the vicinity where they're feeding and stuff. And then we also talked about how if it was a bear, what was so interesting about that spot where it was standing? There was like didn't look like it was like berry bushes or anything like there was really like something that would really hold a bear up, you know, when humans are about.
Exactly.
And so I think the other alternative is that you did hear a whoop. There was something over there. It coincided with the recent activity in this area. You know, and I think, was it Moneymaker sent you there for a reason? Didn't he have something occur, like in that exact area?
No, not that exact.
No,
Moneymaker he's found tracks in this area too. I don't know about that exact area, but, you know, it was just a spot he just sent us to. He just go here. And it wasn't like, you know, we weren't expecting anything to happen. And something did. But, like, again, you going back to what you were saying, a bear. Okay, sure. If I heard a whoop, maybe it was an owl. And maybe there was a bear at that exact time after the owl did the whoop, right? You'd have to have two animals in the same spot to do two different things.
Which, in that case, if they were in that vicinity, what are the odds that, like, I mean, the owl could have been out of range, but there's a good chance that if you heard it in that area and you went to that general area,
and there's a bear there.
If the coincidence that there were two animals there, a bear for you to film, and an owl, there's still a great chance that you would catch the owl on your thermal in the tree.
Yeah.
Because they're not like cold-blooded birds. I've seen owls like up in the tree with therms. So.
I just rule out bears for that fact because they would have to be a perfect storm of two animals in the same area.
Right.
As we're doing Bigfoot calls.
Or suggest that you like totally misheard something in general.
Yeah.
But I mean, I've been out in the woods and you're not a very jumpy like I hear everything. Now back then you were a lot newer to the subject, so like we could really deep dive like your early Bigfooting character.
But I would still argue the fact that I'm a reasonable person even back then.
Right. That something's just like to just suggest that you imagine something, and then it later led to a chain of events. You know,
because like, I've told you about before the thermal video, my very first time to Bluff Creek, Austin was there.
Right.
Yeah. You know, I possibly heard wood knocks and whoops I recorded, which does sound like them, but I really can't positively say that as anything.
Yeah.
And you've heard me talk about that. You know, I say I don't really know. Someone walked around their tent. I don't know if it was a Bigfoot. There was a shadow that moved upright, but that was weird to say the least. But I don't know.
Yeah.
But this thermal video was a year or something later, and this thermal video is the one I would really put money on. If anything, of all the stuff I've ever had happen in Bigfooting, this is the one I would put money on to say. I really got lucky that night and filmed one.
Yeah. Glenn, what's the brown dwarf take on all this? Like, what's it? I've been asking these guys about their encounter, but in terms of this area and checking out where this encounter happened, like, what's your impression of this place and what these guys are discussing?
Yeah, well, actually, I wanted to go back to the video that they were talking about. And from what I understand is that was in Kern County.
Yeah, it was Kern County.
Yeah, which is...
The video off the 5 highway.
Of it walking along the road or below the road.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so I think we're technically, I don't know if we're in Ventura County.
We're Ventura County.
And then so it's, after Ventura, it's Kern, right?
Yeah.
So I still think that those, I don't know how it works, but those mountains are somehow connected to here.
Oh, yeah, they are.
You know?
Well, because, like, you can go across that highway that goes into Fraser Park, and on that one lane, it's a 1-lane highway each way.
Okay.
And there's very limited traffic, especially at night. So anything could cross from this mountain range to that mountain range into Kern County. Very easy.
And then I was mentioning earlier about some stuff I was hearing out of Gorman and right along the 5 freeway also. And they didn't specify exactly what, but there were some strange things going on in Gorman. And I just kind of figured had to be related to Bigfoot, you know, but it's not positive. So I keep that in mind. And that's still within this area here. And, yeah, so I had been out with Tate to this spot before the thermal footage, right?
No, it was after.
It was after?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. All right.
That's the reason I took you here.
All right. Yeah. So I wasn't clear on that, but yeah, I just felt that the night we came up, yeah, it just had that vibe for me. It was, like I said, my first time coming, and being in the dark, it was just, I had no idea really what the terrain was, but I just remember walking over some big trees, and I remember like boulders being in the way and stuff like that. So I knew it was like some pretty rough terrain, and checking it out today in the daylight, yeah, just really puts things into perspective for me as far as like the terrain here and what could be up here, and just some of the history of Southern California. You hear them out in the Angeles National Forest, which isn't far from here either. This, I'm sure, connects to Angeles National Forest.
Just cross the 5 highway.
Yep. Yeah, and once again, there's that I-5, and I'm sure even going up north, if, getting into Shasta and beyond that, you'll hear stuff along the 5 all the way up to Oregon, Washington, I'm sure. But yeah, Southern Cali does have it, and a lot of people don't think that, and I mentioned that, and but yeah, there is history, and yeah, personally for me, most of my stuff's happened up north, but that feeling that I get up north when I'm around certain areas, I get it out here too. So yeah, it's good to see that out here, desert vibe, but yet you still have some trees, some hills, and wildlife. So
yeah, this area is this area is able to support black bears. It's able to support mountain lions. It's able to support deer. It's able to support rabbits, foxes, coyotes.
I think if areas could, there's usually 3 different points that I look for in accessing, like, what's the word? In assessing like Bigfoot, potential Bigfoot habitat.
Yeah.
And we talked about 2 of them earlier. We said mountain lions seem to need ridges. I think that these things hunt along ridges, or at least glass for potential threats along ridges, like walkable wildlife ridges. So I think like you get to some points, like you won't see mountain lions at a certain like steep incline. They're not gonna be like way above like like the alpine zone and stuff. Like they'll be in like the lower areas, you know, where there's available water, but and then there's a certain level of steepness, but they can still traverse and still can hunt from above, you know.
Yeah.
And I think that, you know, like Bigfoot needs something similar terrain wise, and then it needs the caloric needs similar to a bear, you know. And we talked about like bears will need a certain mixture of plant and animal matter to like keep them fed. And so I think if you have overlapping bear and mountain lion territory, those are two things that are really good. But the third thing that I was thinking about is like a history of indigenous people living in the area, because you know they're able to find available food sources. You know, like humans are primates,
Right.
and so it's like a lot of the things that we can eat. If entire human villages were sustained in this region, then there should be enough available calories in the wild for something like Bigfoot, you know, to live in a small family group or something like that. So if those three things are present, then you know I say, well, if humans can live here, and bears can live here, and mountain lions can live here, you know, and somewhere across those three, in those three species that have their individual needs, you think that Bigfoot is kind of contained within those three like need areas, or three different species and their needs. So like I think if they're all here, then Bigfoot should have enough
Food.
Yeah, and
for its expected needs. You know?
and you know it's for sure that we have the bear and the mountain. I mean, they come down to people's residence
all the time here.
yeah.
Yeah.
And
I mean, they've got warnings on their signs at the trailheads. You know, that, hey, you're in bear country and you're in mountain lion country.
oh yeah.
You know?
And speaking of footage, once again, going back to that Kern County footage, if you notice, you know, people have talked about Bigfoot and like some power lines and stuff like that.
There's power lines on that ridge.
Yeah, the Sasquatch looked like, or the subject looked like it was walking. It was walking towards a tower power. I called it one of those big old tower power line things.
Yeah.
So I found that interesting. But anyway, there's another piece of footage that made the news, and this was out of La Cañada, Flint Ridge, which is the base of the Angeles National Forest, San Gabriel Mountains, which is not far from here. And this guy got a video of what looked like a small monkey-like thing swinging through the trees, and this was behind a YMCA at the foothills of the mountains. And up in that area, I've gone out with someone who's a Bigfooter, and we found some interesting stuff up in the Angeles National Forest, right above this YMCA area, but it's further up in the mountain. And so to me, yeah, could someone have had maybe let it loose a monkey or something like that? You know, it is Los Angeles County.
Yeah, you never know.
But I just thought it was very interesting. So it could have been a baby Bigfoot, man. Yeah, I don't know, but I'll shoot that link to you and for you to check out. But yeah, it's on the tube.
What if you don't mind me asking, did you guys find like some structures?
Yeah, we found structures, and then around the structures, we actually found a weird ball of hair, man. It looked grayish, and it looked like I always mention. Imagine if Bob Ross had picked his afro and like cleaned his pick. Yeah, it looked like a ball of hair, dude, right in the vicinity of these stick structures. So that was kind of weird. I kind of split it with the guy, and so I have that somewhere. But yeah, no, there's been reports of stuff up there, and so it to me that was kind of interesting that piece of footage came out like that.
Yeah, I mean, this area has a history.
Yeah, well, you talk further down, Big Bear. I've heard of stuff out of Big Bear, you know, Lake Arrowhead, you know, going down into San Bernardino County and further south even, man. But yeah, here I feel like we're heading north. So the more north you go, it seems like more activity in California, you know.
Yeah. Well, we were talking about like adaptation. So a lot of this area, this This area of Los Padres is like we're kind of in a wooded conifer forest area,
Right.
and there's some other opposite ridges you can see the trees, and that it's a forested area.